Derek Langston sat in his corner office, 37 floors above Manhattan, sipping espresso like it still impressed him. The city below moved in slow chaos, cabs honking, people shouting, everything screaming with purpose. That chaos never reached his glass fortress. In here everything was silent, calculated, efficient. That's how Derek liked it. His world ran on discipline, controlled meetings, scheduled plans, no surprises. But the universe doesn't care for control, not when ghosts have unfinished business. It started like any other morning. His routine was clockwork. Wake up at 5:30 a.m. sharp, gym, shower, eat egg whites and oats, no sugar, black coffee, driver at 7:15, in the office by 8 am, emails first. Staff briefs by 9, deal negotiations by 10. That rhythm never changed. Until 10:13 a.m. his intercom buzzed. "Mr. Langston?" Lauren, his assistant, spoke carefully. She always did when something was slightly off. "The new marketing analyst is here. HR sent her up for your welcome briefing and onboarding approval." He kept his eyes on the screen. "Tell her to leave the folder. I'll go through it later." There was a pause, slight but pregnant. "She's already inside, sir." That made him look up, and there she was. She had the kind of presence that silenced a room before she even spoke. Tall, elegant, with skin that glowed under the office lights, a soft but unshakable confidence in her posture. Her tailored navy suit hugged her just right. Classy, professional, no nonsense. She looked like someone who didn't just belong in this place. She looked like someone born to lead it. But that wasn't what made Derek's chest seize like a locked gear. It was her face. Her mouth was slightly different, fuller maybe, but the eyes? God help him, the eyes. Hazel, almost gold under the light. His eyes. She had his eyes. She stepped forward and held out a hand. "Hi, I'm Imani Grant, transferred from our LA division. I'll be working under your strategy department." He didn't move, didn't blink. Every molecule in his body froze. That name, that face, that voice, Grant. Her last name hit him harder than the face. Denise Grant. 25 years ago, south side of Chicago. A rainy night. A broken relationship. A woman he loved once, or thought he did, until the pregnancy. He ran like a coward, like a ghost that never planned to haunt again. And now the past stood in front of him, smiling like fate just played the cruelest trick of all. Imani's smile faded slightly. "You okay, sir?" Derek snapped out of it, with the clumsiness of a man used to never losing control. "Yes. Sorry, long week." He reached out and shook her hand. Her grip was firm, professional, but there was no recognition, no suspicion, which meant she didn't know, or didn't yet. She nodded. "HR said I'll be leading 2 new campaign rollouts. I hope to get up to speed quickly. Marketing innovation is kind of my wheelhouse." He nodded, voice still tight. "I'm sure you'll do great." She turned, heading for the door, and then paused. "One thing," she said, looking over. Her shoulder. Derek braced. "I was told Langston & Carr started out as a family-led startup. I like that. Feels personal, rare in this industry." He offered a faint, hollow smile. It was. Personal. In the beginning. She smiled again, then walked out. As soon as the door shut, Derek collapsed back into his chair, heart thundering like it hadn't in years. He swore under his breath twice, then reached for his phone and dialed the one man who still owed him a few favors. "Carter, I need information, fast. The name's Imani Grant, LA division transfer. Cross-check it with a Denise Grant. She lived in Chicago in the late 90s. I need to know everything, birth records, adoption, guardianship, whatever you can find." Carter hesitated. "You think she's—" "I know she is," Derek snapped. "I just need it confirmed." A deep breath came through the line. "You sure you want to stir this up? Some boxes ain't meant to be opened, D." "This one was never closed," Derek said coldly, "just buried." He hung, up before Carter could say more, then sat there, staring at the door like it might open again and swallow him whole. 25 years. And the mistake he thought he'd outrun just walked back into his life. Derek didn't sleep that night. Not really. He went through the motions. brushed his teeth, slipped into his silk robe, and climbed into the California king bed that had once held his second wife. But the room was silent now. No TV, no breathing beside him, just the ticking of 1,000 thoughts crawling through his mind like termites in wood. She had his eyes. He remembered the way Imani looked at him. Not suspicious, not hostile, just polite, professional. She didn't know. Or maybe she did but was playing the long game. Either way, it rattled him. The past wasn't supposed to show up in pencil skirts and confident handshakes. It was supposed to stay buried beneath guilt and forgotten phone numbers. He stared at the ceiling until his phone lit up at 2:12 a.m. Carter, got what you asked. Thought you were right. Derek's hands went cold. He tapped to open the file Carter sent. Name, Imani Denise Grant. Date of birth, April 3rd, 2000. Mother, Denise Grant. Father, not listed. Notes, raised by maternal grandmother. Education, UCLA, marketing major, top 5% employment, Langston and Carr, LA division, fast-tracked for management. No mention of adoption, no mention of anyone stepping in. Denise hadn't married, Imani had been raised alone, no father figure. Derek sat there silent. She really was his. The shame hit like a bat to the chest. She'd grown up without him, and now here she was, unknowingly working under the man who had left her mother sobbing in a hospital hallway. He remembered that night too well. Denise, crying, the nurse shouting, the guilt crushing him, and still he walked away. She'd called once, maybe twice, left voicemails, then stopped. That was over 2 decades ago. He'd justified it all back then, told himself he wasn't ready. That she'd be better off without him, that he had nothing to offer. Now she had more degrees than he did. He ran a hand over his face. What the hell was he supposed to do? Tell her? Fire her? Avoid her? The next morning came too fast. At 9:02, Samity Derek walked into the strategy boardroom and found his senior team gathered. Bright suits, bright smiles. Imani was seated near the front, pen in hand, listening intently to a budget projection. His throat tightened. She didn't even glance his way, just took notes. She really didn't know. He sat through the meeting in a fog, barely listening, nodding at graphs and projections, pretending to care about brand synergy and cross-platform engagement. Words bounced off his ears. All he could think of was her. When the meeting ended, people trickled out, eager for coffee or the next thing on their planner. But Imani stayed behind, eyes on her notes. Derek lingered. He knew what he had to do. Imani, he said, voice steady but tight. She looked up, straightening. Yes, sir? Do you have a minute? Of course. She followed, him into his office, calm and poised, like she belonged in high places. He closed the door behind her and walked slowly to his desk. I wanted to say you handled yourself well in there, he said. Your input on the rollout timeline was smart. You've got an instinct. She smiled modestly. Thank you, I try to pay attention to the bigger picture. It's kind of how I grew up, always reading the room. That hit a little too hard. You mentioned you were from LA? He asked carefully, pretending to shuffle papers. She nodded. Moved there when I got a scholarship. But I'm from Chicago originally. South Side. Derek's heart sank. Of course she was. You grew up with your mom? She paused ever so slightly. No. My mom passed when I was 6. Cancer. I was raised by my grandmother. Derek's knees nearly gave out. Denise was gone, she died, and he never knew? He looked down, gripping the edge of the desk like it might anchor him to the present. I'm sorry, he said. I didn't know. Imani gave a small nod. It's okay. My grandma was tough. She raised me to be stronger. He swallowed, the lump in his throat. I'm sure she did. There was a silence. Not awkward, but weighty. Like something unsaid was brushing both their shoulders. Then she spoke again. I have a strange question, if you don't mind. He tensed. Go ahead. Did you ever spend time in Chicago? Around 1999 or 2000? His stomach turned to ice. Yeah. A bit. Why? She studied him for a second, not accusingly, just curious. "I just wondered. My grandma always said my father was someone who couldn't handle the pressure. She never named him. My mum never talked about it either." He stayed quiet. "I guess being here now, working with powerful men, makes me think about it more than I used to." Derek forced a laugh that barely sounded human. "Powerful men can be cowards too." Imani raised an eyebrow but didn't press. "Well," she said, standing up, "thanks for the chat. I'll get back to the team." She walked out. And just like that, Derek knew the time bomb was ticking. Because she suspected something, maybe not fully, but the way she asked, too specific, too close. She was digging, and if she dug deep enough, she'd find the truth. He sat in his chair, heart pounding again. The past had found him, and it wasn't leaving quietly. The office had never felt this quiet before, not in the years Derek Langston had ruled it like a polished king, not even during the worst investor standoffs or press scandals. But now it hummed with a new kind of threat, silent, unseen, and carried in the footsteps of a woman who didn't even know she was holding a knife to his legacy. Imani. Her name repeated in his head like an echo he couldn't shut off. Every hallway she walked down now felt heavier. Every room she entered a test of his composure. She didn't act strange. She didn't watch him suspiciously. And that only made it worse. It meant he was the one unraveling while she was just existing, and Derek didn't know how much longer he could take it. That afternoon, he cancelled 3 meetings, ignored a dozen emails, and sat at his desk, staring at a photograph on the bookshelf. It was from 2006, back when he married Cynthia, his second wife, and tried to pretend his life was whole. In the photo, he had a drink in one hand and a corporate trophy in the other. Cynthia smiled beside him, bright and fake. That marriage had lasted 5 years and cost him more in alimony than he cared to remember. And yet it wasn't Cynthia or the failed marriage that haunted him. It was the fact that Imani should have been in that photo, not some dusty memory floating in the background of his guilt. His phone buzzed again, this time a text from Carter. "Carter. FYI, her grandma passed last year. She was her only family left." Derek's chest twisted. Imani was truly alone. He leaned back, hands on his face. He'd spent 25 years pretending this child didn't exist, and now she was walking around his company, smiling at colleagues, taking notes in boardrooms, and looking so much like him, it made his skin crawl. But what now? Tell her the truth? Ruin her life and his? Or keep the mask on, hope she never finds out, and live with the fact that he's the worst kind of father? No, scratch that. He wasn't a father. He was just the biological event that led to her existence. A stranger. A man who ran, and she had survived without him. Thrived. That evening, as most of the company filtered out for the day, Derek stayed behind. He knew she was still in the building. He'd heard from Lauren she was working late on presentation revisions. So he waited. When the hall outside quieted to nothing but the low hum of fluorescent lights, he stood and walked toward the marketing department. His shoes echoed louder than usual. She was in the glass conference room, laptop open, earbuds in, surrounded by notes. She looked focused, tired, and completely unaware of the storm brewing just 10 feet away. He knocked gently on the glass. She looked up and smiled faintly before removing her earbuds. "Working late?" he asked. "Trying to stay ahead." "Always. Helps to be the over-prepared new girl." He stepped in slowly. "Mind if I sit?" She looked a bit surprised, but nodded. "Sure." He sat across from her. The table between them felt too small. "I was thinking about our conversation earlier," he began carefully, "about your father." She tilted her head. "Yeah? I just wanted to say, I admire how well you turned out, given what you've gone through." Imani blinked. "Thank you. You don't seem bitter." She gave a little laugh. "What's the point? Holding on to resentment doesn't change what happened. Or who didn't show up." He nodded, throat dry. "You ever try to find him?" Her expression flickered. "Barely." But he saw it. "I thought about it," she said slowly. "Especially after Grandma died. But what's the point?" He didn't want to be found. Derek swallowed hard. "But," she continued, locking eyes with him, "sometimes I wonder if I've already met him. His blood turned to ice. She leaned forward, elbows on the table, searching his face. There are these little things, she said softly, familiar things. The way you talk, your eyes, the way you avoid certain questions. And it makes me wonder, what are the odds? He tried to laugh but choked on it. That's quite an accusation. I didn't accuse, she said calmly. I'm asking. Derek stood abruptly. The chair scraped the floor too loudly. I think this conversation's inappropriate, he said, voice trembling despite himself. You're an employee, I'm your superior. Imani leaned back unaffected. Right, of course. He turned to leave but paused at the door. You're smart, Imani, he said. But sometimes smart people ask questions they're not ready to hear the answers to. She didn't flinch. I've been ready my whole life, she said. He left, but her voice followed him down the hall. Derek didn't return to the office for 2 days. He claimed migraines. He told Lauren to cancel everything, reroute all calls, and let people think he was taking some much-needed rest. But he wasn't resting, he was unraveling. He sat in his penthouse suite, blinds drawn, a half-empty bottle of bourbon sitting on the polished table beside him. His phone had buzzed dozens of times, investors, board members, staff, but he ignored it all. All he could think about was the look in Imani's eyes when she said, Sometimes, I wonder if I've already met him. She knew. Maybe not fully, maybe not with evidence, but she knew. And that terrified him more than anything in the world. Because if she exposed him, if she went public, if the media got wind of it, it wouldn't just destroy his image. It would decimate the entire company. The optics alone. White CEO abandons black daughter at birth, then hires her unknowingly, then tries to hide it again. The press would eat it alive. Social media would turn it into a blood sport. But deeper than that, he was afraid of what it would do to her. She'd built herself from nothing, without him, without any man. If the truth surfaced, it wouldn't just change how the world saw him. It would fracture her entire identity. And maybe she didn't deserve that. Still, silence was poison too. By day 3, he went back in. The whole office shifted the moment. He stepped out of the elevator, eyes flicked toward him, polite smiles, whispers, but only one person really watched him, Imani. She didn't say a word, just nodded professionally as they crossed paths in the hallway, but in that glance was a message. I'm not done asking questions. That afternoon, Lauren buzzed in. Sir, she's requesting a one-on-one. Imani Grant. He stared at the intercom, pulse rising. Did she say what for? No, just that she wants to talk, privately. His hands trembled slightly as he pressed the button. Schedule it. After hours. He needed time to prepare. She showed up promptly at 6:01 p.m., no folder in hand this time, no laptop, no polite distance in her posture. She sat across from him like someone ready to put a war on the table. He didn't bother with small talk. You came to confront me, didn't you? Imani studied him. I came for the truth. Derek exhaled slowly. There it was. The moment he'd run from for 25 years, now cornering him in the office, he thought would protect him. He stood up, walked over to the window, and stared, out at the dying light over the city skyline. You were born in April 2000, he said softly. South side of Chicago. Denise Grant was your mother. Silence behind him. I knew her when I was still trying to figure myself out. We were young, dumb, in love maybe, or something close to it. He turned to face her. When she told me she was pregnant, I panicked. I said all the right words at first, support, plans, future. But the closer it got, the more I crumbled. I wasn't built for it. I didn't think I could be a father. I thought, you'd be better off without me. Her face was unreadable. No tears, no rage, just stillness. I came to the hospital, he said. For a moment I saw her, I heard you crying, and I ran like a coward. Imani's voice was steady. Why didn't you come back? I told myself I'd ruin you, that I wasn't ready, that maybe one day when I had something to offer I'd reach out. But the truth is, I never did, and that's on me. He walked back to his desk and sat down heavily. I never stopped thinking about it, about you, but I thought I'd buried it deep. Enough, And then you walked in. Imani's lips pressed together. Do you know what it's like, she said quietly, to grow up watching other kids get picked up from school by dads who hug them? Do you know how many times I asked my grandma why I wasn't enough for him to stay? He lowered his head. I deserved every bit of that pain, he said. I don't want an apology, she said. Not now, I'm not here for that. Then what do you want? She leaned forward. I want to know why you didn't even try. Why you let me grow up thinking I was a burden someone threw away. His voice cracked. Because I was afraid. And selfish. And I told myself that if I left, maybe you'd never know what you lost. Well, I do know, she said sharply. And I still came out strong. I still got the scholarships. I still walked into this company. Without your name. Without your help. I know, he whispered, and I'm proud of you. Even if I don't have the right to be. Silence again. But it was heavier now. It was the kind of silence that came after a war, not peace, but exhaustion. Imani stood. I don't want your money, or your name. I didn't come here looking for a father. I came here looking for closure. He nodded, eyes glossy. Then I'll give you whatever truth you want, even if it destroys me. She hesitated at the door. One more thing, she said. I'm not going to the press. I'm not telling HR. I'm not trying to hurt your company. But I'm staying. I earned my place here. His voice was hoarse. You absolutely did. She opened the door, then paused one last time. You abandoned me once. Don't pretend you get to walk back in and rewrite the story now. And then she left. Derek sat there, alone again. But this time the silence didn't feel like control. It felt like judgment, and it was justified. The next few weeks passed with a surreal kind of normalcy. Derek came to work on time. Imani attended meetings, delivered presentations, and rose faster than anyone had expected. From the outside, they looked like any powerful executive and rising star. But under the surface, it was all cracking. They didn't speak again privately, not even once. Every morning, Derek saw her across the hallway or heard her voice during department syncs, and every time it twisted something inside him. She was brilliant, focused, composed, but colder now, sharper around the edges, like she'd built new armor overnight and wasn't planning on taking it off again. It was the armor of a daughter who'd met the man who left her and decided she didn't need him after all. And she was right. She didn't. She was outperforming everyone. Clients noticed, executives noticed, hell, investors noticed, too bored. Members casually asked Derek about the sharp new hire with the UCLA background. One even joked, that girl's got the kind of fire this company's missing. Derek smiled and nodded, but inside, he was dying. Because they were right. She was the best thing that had happened to Langston & Carr in a long time, and it had nothing to do with her DNA. She was just better, smarter, hungrier, stronger. Everything he should have been when he walked away 25 years ago. Late one night, long after most of the staff had left, Derek stayed in his office, going over quarterly forecasts, or at least pretending to. He was really just staring at Imani's latest campaign analytics, stunned by how precise her strategy had been. Then the door opened. Lauren peeked her head in. Mr. Langston. Yeah, Imani's still here. She said she needs your signature on a budget proposal. Should I send her in? He hesitated, a long pause, then, yeah, send her in. 30 seconds later, Imani walked through the door with the same quiet confidence that had defined her since day one. She placed the folder on his desk and took a step back, standing straight. No adjustments necessary, she said coolly. Legal's already reviewed it. Derek nodded, opening the folder and skimming the figures. Everything was spotless, as usual. He signed, but as she turned to leave, he couldn't hold it in any longer. Imani. She paused without looking back. I know you said you didn't want apologies, he said slowly, and I know I don't have the right to ask you for anything. But would you ever consider letting me be in your life, even just a little? The air shifted. Imani turned around, her expression unreadable. I've had 25 years without you, she said. I survived every heartbreak, every birthday, every graduation without a father. I stopped imagining what it'd be like a long time ago. I understand, Derek whispered. But now that I know who you are, she added, walking back toward him, it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't erase the nights I cried because I thought I wasn't enough, or the way Grandma worked 2 jobs just to keep us in a decent neighborhood. He lowered his head. I failed, every step of the way. You did. A pause. But I'm not here to punish you, she said. I'm just trying to live my life. I've worked too hard to be swallowed by the past. He looked up at her. So that's a no? She shook her head slowly. It's not a no, it's a not yet. Derek blinked. She sighed. Maybe one day I'll want to hear more. Maybe one day I'll be ready. But right now, I need space. I can give you that. Good, she said, stepping back again. Because whether you like it or not, I'm not going anywhere. And she left him there again. But this time it didn't feel like a door slamming shut. It felt like a window cracked open. Barely, but open. The next morning, things shifted again, only this time outside their fragile orbit. News broke. Some junior analyst leaked a story to a startup media blog. Langston & Carr's newest hire may be CEO's secret daughter from decades-old scandal. The headline was sensational, vague, and mostly rumor, but the buzz it caused was instant. By 10 a.m., the article had spread to 3 business gossip sites. By noon, Reddit threads had picked it up. By 3 p.m., Derek had 2 lawyers in his office and a phone ringing off the hook. How the hell did this get out? He demanded. We're trying to trace the leak, one lawyer said, but the speculation's already out there, even if it's baseless. It's not baseless, Derek snapped. The room fell silent. What? The second lawyer asked. It's true, Derek admitted, his voice low. She's my daughter. You confirmed that publicly? No, he said, but I will. Both lawyers looked stunned. That's suicide, Derek, one said. The media will crucify you. Shareholders will lose their minds. This company will survive, Derek said flatly, because I won't let them turn her into a scandal. A knock came at the door. Lauren again. There's a reporter from the Finance Weekly in the lobby, and Imani's down there with her. Derek's heart dropped. Did she invite the press? No, Lauren said carefully. They approached her. She looked calm, like she was ready. Derek stood up fast. Clear my next hour, and tell Imani to come up, alone. As Lauren left, he took a deep breath. It was time. The truth wasn't just out. It was screaming. Imani walked into Derek's office with a calm he didn't trust. She wore a charcoal blazer, no makeup, hair pulled back in a sharp bun. Her face was unreadable. No anger, no smugness, just stone. The way someone looks right before court or war. She closed the door behind her, but didn't sit. Derek stood, too. He didn't know why. Maybe guilt demanded he meet her eye to eye. You saw the articles, he said. She nodded. Of course I did. I didn't leak it, he added quickly. I know. You didn't either, she scoffed, lightly. What kind of idiot do you think I am? He exhaled. That was something, at least. Do you want me to handle it, deny it, sue the blogger, bury it? No, no. She stepped closer to his desk, hands folded in front of her. I want to speak. He blinked. Speak. To the press, she said, on my own terms before this gets uglier. Derek's pulse kicked hard. Imani, the moment you go public, they'll rip us apart, I know, she said coolly. But they'll rip me worse if I say nothing. If I stay silent, the world gets to write my story for me, and that's not how I've made it this far. He sat down slowly. You really want the world to know you're my daughter? I want them to know that I'm more than that, she said. I want them to know I earned my place here, that I wasn't some charity hire, that my mother raised a force, not a scandal. He was silent for a moment, looking at her, really, looking. She was stronger than he ever imagined, not just smart, not just capable, unbreakable. She wasn't just his daughter, she was his reckoning, and maybe somehow his redemption too. I'll stand beside you, he said, if that's what you want. She hesitated. I don't know if I want that yet, but if you do speak, don't make it about how sorry you are. Make it about what you did. Don't turn this into a sob story." He nodded. A long silence stretched between them. "I hated you," she said quietly, "for most of my life." He looked down. "I deserve that. But I also wondered what kind of man could walk away from something like me," she continued, "and I used that anger to get better, smarter, sharper." She paused. "And now I get it. You weren't strong enough. You were weak and selfish and scared." He looked up at her, his eyes wet. "But I'm not scared," she said. "Not anymore." She turned to leave. Before she opened the door, she added, "I'll handle the interview. You'll get a heads up before it drops after that. I'll decide if we talk again." And then she was gone. Derek sat in silence. There wasn't much else to do. He let her go again, but this time it wasn't abandonment, it was accountability. 3 days later, the interview dropped. Front page of the Finance Weekly's digital edition, "Daughter of Langston CEO speaks out. Not a scandal, a survivor." The article was raw and human. Imani didn't name Derek explicitly, but she didn't hide it either. She talked about her upbringing on the South Side, her mother, Denise, the nights they scraped rent together, the day she found out who her father was and what she did. With that information, "I didn't want revenge," the article quoted. "I wanted the truth and I got it. But my story isn't about who abandoned me. It's about who raised me and who I became anyway." Social media blew up. Within hours, the internet was torn in half. One side praised her strength, her composure, her refusal to let herself be defined by her father's absence. The other side, harsher. Nepotism in disguise. Another corporate diversity stunt. She wouldn't be in that office without his name. Derek watched it all unfold in his office, fists clenched. The very thing she feared, being reduced, being questioned, being minimized, was happening in real time, and he had caused it. He was the reason her name was now being dragged into hashtags, Reddit threads, podcasts. He couldn't sit still anymore. So that night, he released his own statement. No PR firm, no team of lawyers, just a raw, direct post from his own company account. 25 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life. I abandoned my daughter, Imani Grant, and I've lived in shame ever since. She came into this company not because of my help, but in spite of my absence. She earned her place, and she is not a mistake I am trying to fix. She is the example I failed to be. If you question her presence here, you're not questioning her worth. You're reflecting my cowardice. She's not the problem, I was, and I'm done hiding from it." The response was immediate, brutal, emotional, raw. Some praised his honesty, others demanded his resignation, but nobody ignored it, and more. Importantly, nobody ignored her anymore either. The next morning, Derek walked into the office to stunned silence. People watched him with mixed eyes, curiosity, judgment, admiration, pity. But he didn't flinch. He walked straight to the marketing department, where Imani sat surrounded by her team. He knocked once, then entered. She didn't look surprised. She'd obviously read his statement already. "I meant every word," he said softly. She nodded. "I know." He stepped closer. "Whatever happens next, whether the board removes me, whether the press keeps digging, I want you to know. I'm not proud of my past, but I'm proud of you." She met his eyes for a long moment, then gave a tiny nod. "You can go now," she said. And so, for the first time in his life, Derek walked away from her, not to abandon her, but to finally give her the space he should have given her from the beginning. The board meeting wasn't scheduled. It was summoned. 48 hours. After Derek's public confession went viral, the shareholders called an emergency session behind closed doors. It wasn't hard to guess why. The press had calmed slightly. Not because people were done talking, but because new scandals, newer distractions, had pushed Derek's moment of shame down the feed. Still, investors were uneasy. Stocks dipped. Clients called with concerns. Internally, the company buzzed with gossip, barely disguised as hallway chatter. And now Derek sat at the head of the long obsidian boardroom table, watching a circle of cold, polished faces stare at him like a contaminated asset. Chairman Paul Hastings cleared his throat. "Derek," he began, "your statement, while commendably honest, has placed the company in an extremely delicate position." "I understand," Derek replied. "You knowingly allowed a personal scandal to enter the workplace without disclosure." "She wasn't a scandal," Derek said, jaw tight. "She's an employee, a damn good one." Paul didn't flinch. "This isn't about her qualifications, it's about what the market perceives." Derek almost laughed. There it was, the real reason for the meeting. It wasn't about morality. It wasn't about ethics. It was about money. Another board member, a younger woman named Evelyn Chu, glanced down at her tablet. There are rumors swirling that this wasn't just a personal mistake, but a potential HR violation. Some believe she was fast-tracked, that you intentionally placed her close to you. "That's bullshit," Derek snapped. "Imani was hired through the LA division, not by me. I didn't even know who she was until after she arrived." "That may be true," Paul said slowly, "but perception doesn't care about details." Derek sat back in his chair, hands folded in front of him. "So what now?" he asked. "You want my resignation?" Silence. Then Paul spoke again. "The board is prepared to offer you a graceful exit. Publicly, it'll be framed as a transition. You'll step down, remain as advisor. The brand gets distance, you retain legacy. Everyone saves face." Derek chuckled bitterly. "Except her." Evelyn frowned. "Imani. She'll be labeled the reason I stepped down. People will twist this like she engineered it. Used her story to rise. You know they will." "That's not our concern," Paul replied flatly. Derek stared at them. He saw it clear now, the cleanup crew smiling politely while sweeping, his name off the hallway walls. Not because he was wrong, but because he'd made them uncomfortable. He leaned forward. "I'll step down," he said. "On one condition." Paul raised an eyebrow. "Which is?" "You promote her. Lead strategist immediately. No more entry-level bullshit. She's already outperforming half your VPs." Paul blinked. "That's... Or I don't step down at all," Derek interrupted, "and I'll go very public about how this board values spin more than substance." A long pause. Then Evelyn said, "We'll vote." They didn't need long. 20 minutes later, Derek walked out with a signed agreement in his briefcase and a resignation date stamped 2 weeks from now. His empire was no longer his. But something about it didn't sting the way he expected. That evening he knocked on Imani's door. Not her office door, her actual apartment door. The address had taken effort. Quiet channels, private favors. She opened the door wearing sweats, no makeup, and a face that said, "This better be important." "I got demoted," he said. She crossed her arms. "You mean fired?" "Technically, stepping down," he smirked. "But yeah, fired." She raised an eyebrow. "And you came here to make me feel guilty?" "No," he said. "I came to say thank you." Her face softened just a touch. "For what?" "For making me do something right. Finally." She said nothing. "They're promoting you," he added. "Lead strategist, full team, more than you ever asked for." She nodded. "I earned that." "I know." They stood in awkward silence for a beat too long. Then he said something he never imagined he'd say. "I'd like to have dinner with you, no pressure, just 2 people figuring out what comes next." She studied him carefully. "I don't need a father," she said. "I know. But maybe," she added, "I could use a very awkward, deeply flawed dinner companion." He smiled. "I can work with that." She stepped aside. "Fine, but I'm ordering dessert first. And I'm not splitting the check." He walked in. For the first time in a very long time, something inside him began to unclench. Over the next 2 weeks, headlines faded, hashtags stopped trending, and the board quietly ushered in a new CEO. Derek didn't fight it. He gave the exit speech. He took the photo ops. He smiled through the handshakes. And Imani. She rose. Her campaigns tripled the numbers her department had projected. Internally, she became known as the sharpest strategist in the company. Publicly, her name no longer came with scandal. It came with respect. But Derek stayed on the edge of it all. No grand gestures, no dad title. Just slow, steady presence. They had dinner once a week. They didn't talk about the past much, not yet, but they laughed. And for now that was enough. It was raining the day Derek packed up his office. Not the kind of heavy, violent rain that slams the windows and disrupts commutes. Just that. Steady grey drizzle that made the city feel like it was sighing. The kind of rain that didn't cleanse anything, just reminded you of what still clung to your skin. The office had already been stripped of anything personal. Photos, awards, framed magazine covers, gone. What remained were only the walls. Cold, bare, familiar. He ran a hand over the desk one last time and found a small scratch in the corner. Funny how the damage you never noticed suddenly felt important when you were walking away. "Didn't think you'd actually leave this place," came a voice from the doorway. He turned to find Imani standing there, umbrella in one hand, a wrapped sandwich in the other. "Lauren said you skipped lunch. Figured you wouldn't eat unless someone shoved food in your face." He smiled faintly. "You always this charming." "Only to people I tolerate." He took the sandwich. "Thanks." They sat on opposite ends of the desk, just like that first day in the boardroom. Only now there was no tension, no performance, just space and the rain. "I read your exit interview," she said after a few bites. "Yeah, was it as boring as I thought? Worse, very polished, very corporate. Almost made me forget you used to be a coward." He laughed through his nose. Old habits. She chewed quietly for a while. Then, "You know, I never told you about her." He looked at her. "My mum," Imani said. "Denise." Derek sat up straighter. She was good at hiding disappointment, not just from others, from herself. She used to say that expecting people to stay was like expecting the weather to behave just for you. He flinched at that. "But," she continued, "she also told me, the night before she passed, that no matter what, I came from two people. One gave me fire. The other gave me fear, and it was up to me which one I lived by." She paused. "I didn't understand it at the time, but I do now." He swallowed hard. She sounds like she was smarter than both of us. She was. A silence passed between them. "I want to keep seeing you," Derek said suddenly. "Not just dinner once a week. Real things, real conversations. I don't want to pretend this all didn't happen." Imani looked down at her sandwich. "I don't know what this is supposed to look like," she admitted. "We're not normal. We're not healing from some one-time screw-up. You left my life before it began." "I know." "So, I don't think I can ever call you Dad." "That's okay. But," she added, "I think I can call you Derek. And I think I can learn who that man is now." He nodded, eyes glassy. "I'll take it." She smiled. Not wide, not dramatic. Just a soft, honest curve of her lips. The kind you give someone who's finally stopped. Running? The rain started to ease outside. Not stop, but ease. 1 year later, Langston & Carr wasn't just surviving, it was thriving. Under new leadership, the company doubled down on fresh strategy, inclusive leadership, and modern branding. And at the center of that shift was Imani Grant. Not just lead strategist anymore, now a partner. She walked the halls with the same cool confidence, but there was a new kind of respect trailing behind her now. Earned, not forced. Not because of her story, but because she delivered. Her story didn't define her anymore, it was part of her, but not the headline. As for Derek, he kept his promise. He stayed involved only when invited. He showed up to dinners on time. He didn't force closeness. He didn't ask for redemption. He simply became a presence that didn't leave again. Some nights they'd talk about Denise. Some nights they'd talk about nothing at all. But slowly, brick by brick, something was being rebuilt. Not a traditional family, but maybe something better, something honest. One evening they stood on Imani's rooftop watching the skyline light up, both holding mugs of tea. The conversation had faded, and the silence felt easy now. "I used to think forgiveness had to feel good," she said out of nowhere, "like a reward, like warmth." He glanced at her. "But it doesn't," she continued. Sometimes forgiveness feels like letting go of a knife you've been holding too long. It doesn't heal the wound, but at least you stop bleeding. He nodded slowly. Do you think you've let go? She looked at him steady. I think I've loosened my grip. The wind blew quietly between them, and for the first time since she'd walked into his office with those familiar eyes and that quiet fire, Derek didn't feel like a man being haunted. He felt like a man who had finally stopped running.